This is the IDP After Show.
Hello and welcome to the first of what will be a weekly episode of the IDP After Show, where we discuss weekly rankings with some incredible guests. Every week I'll touch on some of the key players in my rankings, breaking down some of the hottest matchups and giving a little insight into my thought process. I'm very pleased to be joined on the debut episode by a name everybody in the IDP community should be familiar with by now, Mr. Mase Riney. Mase is the IDP content manager of Fantasy Six Pack, produces content for 5 Yard College, and is Fantasy Pros number 10 IDP ranker of 2022. Now, Mase produces his own rankings, and I think that gives us a great theme for this show as we sort of bounce off of each other, sharing and comparing how we feel about some of the best IDP 1 matchups. Mase, I'm buzzing to have you on. How's it going?
Dude, great. I'm honored to be here. Honestly, I've always wanted to be on something that was an IDP show since I first started IDP. And then, we kind of go back to when we were both at IDP guys, the whole Jason Mase thing. It's kind of linked up there. I started at 5 Yard Rush, so I know what it's like to communicate with people on your side of the pond and stuff, man. So respect to you and all the people over there that do what you do. And honestly, thank you for having me on your debut show. It's pretty sick.
No, as I said, it's awesome to have you on. So look, all the waiting, anticipating, it's almost over. How exciting is it to finally get to the point where we've got some meaningful game action this week?
Yeah, for sure. It's always like a real thing for me to wake up super, super early, obviously probably because of my kids. But I'll go on there and kind of look at the stats. I'll be looking at, snap counts, all that stuff, kind of one of my guilty pleasures. So definitely ready to do that Friday morning, right? We got football tomorrow. So I'm ready to rock, ready to roll, ready to see how good my rankings or my projections were and how probably awesomely horrible they are. So just everything I'm buzzing about it.
You and me both. So, before we get into discussing the players, I wanted to talk a little bit about our approach to these rankings. So I suspect we have a kind of fairly similar mindset where we consider, things like the obvious ones: health and availability, snap share, matchup, talent. I'm keen to hear your thoughts on this. How much emphasis do you place on some of those points? And did I miss anything there that you consider when you're thinking about doing your rankings?
Yeah. First off, you got to look at the availability of the player. Injury history comes into play, but at the same time, you want to hinder a completely faded guy past his ADP because of things like that. So I like to look at schematics, green dot. Does a safety have a green dot? Someone else? Draft capital. Is there a rookie that got drafted in the first or second round that maybe might be moving up and kind of wedging someone out of the picture? Is there a coach that came over that maybe runs more of a hybrid tweener opposed to a solid LB2? Just little kind of things like that you try to pick up on, but it's more so just doing that, creating kind of a blueprint for what you think the season's going to be. And then kind of reeling back, looking at the numbers and trying to understand what each coach is trying to do while also looking at the matchup and what the schematics of the offense are, obviously, right? It's super hard. It's super intricate. And, you try to do your best thing, but it's obviously impossible to turn over every single stone possible.
Yeah, exactly. There's so much volatility, especially at some positions, right? Like defensive back. And week 1 is probably the hardest of all the weeks as well. Snap share is one of the most useful factors that I consider when I'm looking at my rankings, and we've got very little to work on, or very little meaningful data to work on, I guess. So, pressure rate, tackle efficiency, all of those are wonderful, but unless a guy is on the field a lot or every down or at least close to it, then it's hard to know where to go. But we glean enough information from the preseason, or as much as we can do. We're carrying over from last year as well, so we feel we've got a fairly decent idea as to what we're going to see week 1. But yeah, there's always surprises.
Well, dude, you got Nicholas Morrow being cut all of a sudden, like with the Eagles, and then now all of a sudden Zach Cunningham's like the cure cut LB2 there, I guess. Like,
yeah,
who had that on their bingo card, right? So
it's
up to surprise, up to anything. You can do your research, you can do your homework, you can look at every single article or interview on demand, and you could wake up the next day and be like, wait, well, hold on, what's going on? So yeah, it's wild, man.
Yeah, that Buffalo situation with the linebackers just today. I've got Dodson everywhere. Thankfully, I kind of doubled up and went with Bernard as well. But we'll get into that. So On that point, let's talk about linebackers first then. So we're going to kick off with the most sought after position in IDP, the one that everyone seems to care about more than any other. So I thought we'd kick this off by looking at our top 10, very briefly running through our top 10, and then having a look at where there's differences between yours and mine, and then picking out which guys we think we're more interested in there. So my top 10 at from 1 to 10, I've got Oluokun, I've got Nick Bolton, Roquan Smith, Bobby Wagner, CJ Mosley, Zaire Franklin, Logan Wilson, Ernest Jones, Bobby Okereke, and Tremaine Edmonds. How does that compare with what you've got for week 1?
Well, we have different Chicago linebackers in our top 10, so probably flip-flop those guys. Let's see. I've got. Do you want me to just read off mine, or do you?
Please, yeah.
Okay, yeah, for sure. All right, so number 1, Foyesade, Oluokun got in there, locked in, tackle champion, blah, blah, we know that. Roquan Smith at 2, Bolton at 3, kind of flip those guys. I got CJ Mosley at 4, Okereke at 5, Wilson at 6, Zaire Franklin at 7, Bobby Wagner at 8. So we kind of, I think 4 and 8 on that. TJ Edwards at 9 and Josie Jewell at 10.
Yeah, that's a good list. A lot of similar names there, with a couple of differences. Josie Jewell, well, yeah, I thought about him, and yeah, that Bears linebacker situation. It's hard to pick out who's going to be the top dog there. I mean, we know they're both going to play a lot, but yeah, I respect you going with Edwards over Edmonds. I prefer Edwards as a player, actually, and it's I've got the two really close in my rankings there. So yeah, it's interesting to see we've got a lot of differences there. So. Or a lot of similarities, sorry. So, so which guys do you really like this week at linebacker, and why? And it can be guys outside of your top 10.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously, I already talked about TJ Edwards. He's playing up against Green Bay, and 2 of their wide receivers just came up with hamstring injuries, Dubes and Watson. I'm not sure how serious it is, but either way, it might just mean short yards passes, things that are familiar for quarterback, wide receiver. Since they don't have a lot of chemistry, obviously, with that entire offense. Also, the whole running back deal, they got the 2-headed monster back there in Dillon and Jones. So even though the Packers were trying to trade for JT, which is it's another thing. Anyways. Okay, moving on to my next guy. I actually just kind of talked about him. Zach Cunningham coming out of nowhere for free. I wasn't even targeting him in best ball. I kind of feel dumb now for not doing it. But at the same time, who would have guessed it, right? But when he's in, he's doing his thing. Obviously, if you're IDP roster, he's next to none. Playing against New England, they do have a new offensive coordinator, but Juju Smith-Schuster's maybe has a knee problem, not really sure. And aside from that, they got Zeke and Ramondre Stevenson. So I don't know. Coming through with Mac Jones, they might take a little bit of time and get some familiarity running the ball to create play action to get things going. So I feel like Cunningham for next to nothing. Also, a guy I'm looking at just inside my top 40, Christian Harris versus the Baltimore Ravens. They have Parham in there, so I'm curious to see what Harris's role is going to be. Maybe he locks in, keys in on Lamar Jackson, get some tackles there, short pass across the middle. I know Zay Flowers is there now too, so I'm not sure if he's going to be streaking and trying to do the yak like kind of in the Shanahan offense. Things pop in there. So some dart throws that I also like. Jermaine Pratt, feel like he's kind of been underappreciated. I know the Bengals do have a lot of DBs there. But Cleveland, they're going to be heavily running the ball, I feel like, with Watson trying to get him into a flow. He only had a couple games last year, so they're really going to want him to get out to, a lukewarm, solid start. So by feeding Chubb, I feel like they'll be able to do that. And then my last one, and your favorite player of all time, Kenneth Murray, man. He's next to nothing. I heard he's had a good camp. Just kidding. No, that's all I got, bro. I respect most of those. The Kenneth Murray one, is people know I'm not his biggest fan, but yeah, Jermaine Pratt was a really good core. He's a guy that started playing a lot better last year, a lot better than I anticipated he could or would. So yeah, and had a pretty decent snap share alongside Wilson as well. So yeah, I kind of like him, and I picked him up in quite a few places. My guys that I really like this week at linebacker, so I've gone with a couple of obvious names here. So Bobby Wagner. So yeah, I liked him to have a top 10, top 5 year at the position anyway. But with Brooks kind of returning from injury and possibly on a snap count, I can kind of see Wagner just having a big week against that sort of
a pretty mediocre or lackluster Rams offense. So yeah, Wagner's a guy I really like. Quay Walker as well. Not a dissimilar situation to Wagner in some ways. Devondre Campbell, his running mate, not quite at 100%, and sort of nursing that ankle injury. So yeah, Walker, obviously we saw him with the green dot in preseason as well at times. So yeah, it kind of feels like he's going to burst out of the gate and have a pretty solid week against the Bears. And yeah, to mention, a guy I talked about a little while back, but yeah, Bernard winning that position alongside Milano, kind of right at the death. Probably really hurt some Tyrell Dodson owners. Obviously, Sean McDermott coming out and telling us that Bernard's going to be playing alongside Milano in week 1 as the starting linebacker. Whether he keeps that in future weeks, don't know. But for this week, if you've got Bernard, then and you're kind of struggling for linebackers, then Bernard's a pretty good shout there. So yeah, they're my guys. Which guys are we looking at fading this week, and why at the position? So linebackers we don't like in week 1.
I'm gonna go ahead. I don't really know, man. I didn't really prepare for this part. I'm sorry. Could you go first, and I can maybe pull some?
Yeah, of course.
I'll look at my list real quick.
Yeah, keen to hear your thoughts on some of these as well. So the guys I've gone with, so I'm with Cole Holcomb. So I kind of big on Holcomb going to the Steelers, and I was kind of surprised to see this week him listed as, or the Steelers to list Cole Holcomb or Quan Alexander as the starting linebacker on their depth chart. I was quite surprised to see that. I kind of expect Holcomb to lead Alexander in snap share and productivity over the course of the season by some margin, health permitting. But it's enough of a concern to see what I saw that it makes me drop Holcomb a little bit for week 1 until we kind of see how this plays out. So that's my first guy that I'm worried about in week 1. And then Shaquille Leonard, obviously, the injuries seem to be continuing, that concussion. I'd love to see him have a healthy year and kind of put together a season kind of like what we saw a couple of years back, right? That was amazing to watch. But, despite the kind of reports that he's kind of recovering from that concussion and should be ready to go for week 1, it just leaves me with concerns that he might not see the kind of workload that he would do otherwise. So they're the two that I'm a little worried about for week 1. They might go out there and put together a massive week, both, in which case I'd look really stupid. But yeah, they're the two I'm slightly concerned with. So if I've got other guys around them in the rankings, then yeah, it might be just dropping those two guys by 1 or 2 spots. So yeah, they're the two I'm concerned with. How do you feel about those two guys in their situations, Mase?
Could you say it one more time? Sorry, I was trying to get my wrist for you.
No, it's all good. So yeah, how do you feel about
Holcomb? I like, because I was looking, like you said, Quan Alexander. That's just another one of those guys that kind of slid in. My buddy was actually telling me that at a draft, and he was kind of buzzed up, and I was like, bro, I like Quan Alexander, and I wanted to find a locker room because, he is one of those guys that will kind of help out the locker room and lead the younger guys. But for him to come and slide in to do a spot like that, especially for a guy, they paid Holcomb for a couple of years, didn't they? So definitely surprising for me. And then who was the other guy? I'm sorry.
So the guy was Shaquille Leonard with the concussion, coming off the concussion. I was just concerned that he might not see that really heavy workload that he'd be seeing if he was fully healthy coming into week 1.
No, 100%. And also, I saw EJ Speed was under concussion protocol as well. So it's kind of like I don't know what's going on there. Leonard, I really haven't been a fan of just because of everything that's been going on with him injury-wise. First, the cost of admission just really isn't all that great. And then another guy you talked about was Jordan Brooks. I liked him as like a best ball, but at the same time, I'm not really sure what's going to go on with that defense. They brought in Jordan Love. They also have Jamal Adams, probably next week or the week after at some point this season. It's just kind of a mess there, so not really down with that. And really any Buffalo linebacker, I don't really want a part of it. They got Christian Kirksey, I think, as well. They signed just to make it even more messier. So, just nothing I really want a part of it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see whether or not that Bernard holds down that role for week 2 and beyond, with Kirksey, as like you say, kind of waiting in the wings. But yeah, because a few situations that I'm kind of keeping my eye on in week 1. It's always the way. Pete Werner versus Demario Davis. How's that going to play out in terms of the who's going to be the top dog there? We've been expecting Werner to kind of supplant Davis for what feels like a couple of years now, and it's yet to happen. Walker versus Campbell, touched on that a minute ago. Devin Lloyd versus Chad Muma. And then you got things like Kaiser White's snap share, Isaiah Simmons, his utilization and snap share. A lot to watch in week 1. It's going to be really interesting to see how it all plays out. So let's talk about some defensive linemen here then. So again, let's start with our top 10. So from DL1 to DL10, I've gone with Maxx Crosby, Nick Bosa, Myles Garrett, Micah Parsons, TJ Watt, Jaelan Phillips, Hassan Reddick, Brian Burns, Aiden Hutchinson, and Joey Bosa. What have you got with your DLs this week, Mase?
Yeah, so my number 1, we're matching that. I got Maxx Crosby. Number 2, Myles Garrett out of Cleveland. Number 3, Micah Parsons. Number 4, TJ Watt. Number 5, Nick Bosa. Number 6, Judon, New England. 7, Danielle Hunter. 8, Zadarius Smith. 9, Hassan Reddick. And 10, Aiden Hutchinson.
Nice. So again, a lot of similar names there, as you'd expect, with a couple of differences. And I should mention, a special mention for those in DT leagues. My top 10 there is Aaron Donald, Quinnen Williams, Jonathan Allen, Chris Jones, Dexter Lawrence, Jeffrey Simmons, Javon Hargrave, Christian Wilkins, DeForest Buckner, and Cameron Hayward. So I guess we should really start with talking about some of these holdouts. So great to see Nick Bosa sign his deal today. That was a major concern, wasn't it? Right?
No, for sure, man. I'd be lying to you if I said I wasn't sweating bullets. I honestly thought he was going to be out. I was getting ready to start Farrell in a couple leagues and see if maybe he could kind of catch some heat. I'm not really sure what's going on with the other side of the line over there between him and Drake Jackson. I mean, now obviously they're going to rotate it out, so that's really good here.
Yeah. I've been telling everyone for weeks, no, don't worry about it. He's the best player on their defense. He's going to be ready to go week 1. So I was getting a bit nervous that I might have sunk a few people, but yeah, it's great to see him sign. And as Josh Raymer pointed out in our chat earlier today, it's probably going to have a domino effect on the rest of the guys. Wouldn't be surprised to see some of the others sign. Chris Jones, I'm worried with. I've got these guys still in my rankings, but yeah, with an asterisk to say, look, be ready to pivot away from these guys. And a lot of these situations, except for maybe Brian Burns, we've known about this for some time, so we've had a chance to prepare, right, and pivot to another player that we've either picked up off waivers or already got on our rosters. Yeah,
for sure. So the Chiefs made a move. I think it was, I don't know if it was a week ago, a little less than a week ago, where they actually traded for a Raiders defensive tackle whose name is escaping me. At that point, I'm like, okay, they're preparing for life after this guy. You look at their defensive line outside of George Karlaftis, it's kind of forgettable to say, to be nice about it. So, I mean, I don't know, man. Their secondary outside, like they got McDuffie, they got Snead. It's like they're okay on the outside, the slot side, but everything else aside from that, and Nick Bolton's kind of messy. So, not really sure what their plan is up front or anything, but at the same time, for the money that it would cost to, re-sign a guy like Jones, what else could you do with your defense with that money? So I kind of understand where they're coming from, but I know at the same time, if you're in win now mode, then you probably want to sign that guy, right? Also, Burns, when the Niners were trading for Christian McCaffrey, I thought that we were trading for Burns, honestly, last year, because, I mean, they're kind of resetting their franchise. It almost looks like they're going in a different direction. So for them now to not lock him up yet, maybe they were waiting on the Bosa deal, and we see what happens. But it is unfortunate because I have pulled Burns out of my top 10 for defensive linemen.
Yeah, understandable. So in terms of the guys on the defensive line that we really like this week, the first one I've gone with, and I've got him at number 10 in my DL rankings, which is slightly higher than I've got him in my season-long rankings, is Joey Bosa. He typically rushes from the left edge, meaning he'll see more of the Dolphins' right tackle, who I'm guessing will be sort of Austin Jackson. And Jackson is a subpar sort of pass blocker at best, surrendering the 6th most pressures in his last season as a starter. Also, left tackle Teron Armstead is kind of dealing with can't remember the nature of his injury, but he's not 100% either coming into the week. A leg injury, ankle injury maybe. So even when Bosa's on the other side. I just like his matchup this week. I feel like he is slightly underrated. He's not quite on Nick Bosa's level for me, and I say this as a Chargers fan, right? You'll be pleased to hear that as a Niners fan. But yeah, I think this week he's got a really nice matchup. So really kind of interested to see, whether he can deliver the goods. And then my other guy is Jaelan Phillips. So same game on the other team. Like Bosa, he kind of rushes from the left edge more often than not, meaning he'll go up against Chargers right tackle Trey Pipkins. And he is, Pipkins, one of the weak spots on that Chargers O-line, despite having a slightly better year in 2022 than I expected. So yeah, Phillips is one of my favorite guys. I've kind of talked about him a lot in the last couple of months. I think he can take that step forward in 2023, and I really like his matchup this week. I think he can start off with a bang. So they're the kind of two guys that I'm kind of looking at the edge position this week, whose matchups or situations I kind of like. Have you got a few that you like, Mase?
Yes, sir. So I'm going to go with Darius Smith for Cincinnati. The entire Browns defensive line on the outside, like, good luck. Which side are you really going to prepare for? I think they're going to try to prepare more for the Garrett side, I guess. Just going to leave it for Smith. Either way, though, if you go with one of those guys, I think you're going to be fine. I got Josh Allen versus Indianapolis. Rookie quarterback situation. Josh Allen looking to get paid. I think he's in a contract year. He's always been kind of a pressure guy. Never really put the lid on it. Hopefully some maturity on the other side, the middle of that line, will help him kind of bolster and become that superstar that at least I felt like he could always become. I got Montez Sweat, kind of same-ish situation, not a rookie quarterback, but they're going up against the Arizona Cardinals, who I think are going to be one of the worst teams in the NFL. Sweat's a really, really underrated pass rusher, and I think he's going to get to the quarterback at least once. You can pick him up pretty late in drafts, or for next to nothing almost. Let's see, some dart throws. I don't know what's going on with Chandler Jones and the whole Instagram tweeting thing. I don't know. Kind of weird. He unfollowed people on his team like Maxx Crosby, unfollowed the Raiders. I know it's just following and unfollowing. It's not that big of a deal, but it possibly could be. So I wasn't expecting to roll out Tyree Wilson this early because of his injury, but I guess he's good to go. Dude's like 6'6", freaking nature. He's got his arms straight out. He's ready to destroy some fools, man. So if you're desperate, go ahead and roll him out and kind of just see what happens, because he might get off this week, right? One more guy, Dietrich Wise, up against the Eagles. I'm not really sure about the Eagles' offensive line. I don't know if they're going to have the hangover from the Super Bowl, what's going to be going on with them. If Bill Belichick wants to stay in that game, he's got to make sure that defense is primo. They do have Jude on there, some rotating guys. But Wise had a good streak last year where he had a couple sacks and a couple games there. So maybe he kind of catches fire early and gets the heat on that offense.
Yeah, likewise. Like you say, kind of sneaks under the radar a bit. Kind of a sneaky productive year last year.
Submarine season, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Oh, another position that I like this week, or like more than I normally would do, is the Bills edge rushers. Obviously, they've rotated really heavily over the course of the last couple of years. But that was under Frazier, and obviously he's not there. Von Miller on the pup list. They traded Boogie Basham away. Kind of makes me like the likes of Greg Rousseau this week a little more than I would do ordinarily. I like Rousseau as a player. I really like him, actually, but I need to see him get a bigger slice of the pie than we've seen him getting in previous years. That's been his biggest drawback as a player, I guess, for fantasy. And maybe Ebenezer as well, although I think I saw him on the injury report going back a few days, so it's worth checking on his status before games kick off. So yeah, any defensive linemen you're fading this week? Would you like me to go first on this one?
I'll hit a couple here. Honestly, there's a guy that I don't want to fade. I kind of have him high ranked, but I also really don't know what to do with him. So if I have him rostered, I'm not going to start him. That's Zaven Collins. And I'm not even really trying to hate on him. I just have no idea what his role is. I don't know if he's going to be playing inside next to Kaiser White. I don't know if they're going to be putting him outside. He's still getting the kinks out. I didn't really get to watch him a lot in the preseason, so I just don't really know. So I'm going to just kind of wait instead of being disappointed, because it might take him time to get used to this new role, and he might be good at it, but who knows, right?
Yep.
Let's see, another guy, Chase Young, just been hurt too many times. I don't know. I don't not like him. Like, his potential is there when he's on the field, but you have to be available to, even get on the field and do anything. Let's see. And my last guy, I guess Chandler Jones. We just talked about him. I'm not really sure what's going on with him mentally or with the status of the team, so just avoid that whole situation.
Yeah. So I've got two of the guys you had. Zaven Collins for all the same reasons. Everyone else seems to be a lot higher on him than I am. I am as an edge rusher this year. It's a bit of an experiment. We know he's going to get a pretty reasonable snap share of some sort, but at what position? It looks like it's going to be predominantly on the edge, but yeah, to have him inside, I've seen him inside the top 20 on some rankings, and that for a position that's kind of deep, like edge is compared to others, I feel like that's a bit optimistic. So yeah, not really that high on Collins for week 1. But like always, trying to be open-minded and then see how things roll. Chase Young, for the reasons you said, still wasn't clear for contact last I heard. Hopefully he's ready to go for week 1 and put together that kind of season that we'd all hope to see. He is one of my sort of bounce back candidates for the year. But yeah, seeing him on that injury report is slightly concerning. And then I guess just the holdouts as we get nearer and nearer to week 1. So yeah, I guess remaining got Chris Jones and Brian Burns is another one. Also, yeah, rookies, any rookies as well, not named Will Anderson. You made a really good case there for Tyree Wilson in light of the situation with Chandler Jones, but outside of Will Anderson and maybe Tyree Wilson, there's no other edge player as a rookie that I'd want to start in week 1. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm sat. Any key things you're looking for in week 1 that might affect your rankings going forward, Mase?
Yeah, I'm going to look at those teams that only have guys normally in the top 10 or 20. Maybe like the Tennessee Titans, see what's going on with their injury situation with their guys. Maybe I'm looking at a guy like Arden Key. Is he going to step up and be able to take a role? Look at some of these one-year players. Try to make sense of the linebacker roles that are going on throughout the league, seeing who's hopping and popping off practice squads. Just trying to keep up with the trends. Honestly, I don't really sweat the small stuff too much until about week 3, week 4. That's when you can really kind of get a picture of really what's going on. You got a quarter of the year, well, I guess ish, kind of now down the drain, so you can kind of surmise what's going on. So I really don't get too heated after week 1, but it is a nice kind of telling tale. But at the same time, you got defenses going up against offenses that it's only one game plan, right? So you kind of want to get more game plans so you can solidify what their base formation is and kind of what the defense is going to roll with from week to week.
Yeah. For me, it's seeing some of these new guys in action, some of the rookies. I doubt it's going to make a big difference for my rankings in week 2 unless we see sort of major surprises. But I can't wait to see Will Anderson. It's not the easiest matchup, maybe with the Ravens, but yeah, can't wait to see him in action. And the development of those year 2 guys, so the Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, maybe even Travon Walker. Something I'm kind of looking forward to following. And then, as we touched on a minute ago, Zaven Collins. What's his snap share and alignment going to look like in week 1? How effective is he as an edge rusher? How impactful do we think he can be this year? So that's kind of some of the things I'm looking for there. So yeah, defensive backs then. So my top 10 at defensive back is Derwin James at 1. Kyle Hamilton at 2, Budda Baker 3, Jalen Petre, Jaquan Brisker, Kamren Curl, Minkah Fitzpatrick, Richie Grant, Kevin Byard, and then at 10 I've got Antoine Winfield Jr. Although I'm thinking twice about that one based on the injury status today. So what have you got, Mase?
Yeah, some familiar face, kind of saying there. Number 1, Derwin James. Number 2, though, Kamren Curl, kind of spicy on that one. Number 3, Petrie. Number 4, Minkah Fitzpatrick. Number 5, Budda Baker. Number 6, Jeremy Chin. Number 7, Harrison Smith. Number 8, Isaiah Simmons. Number 9, Kyle Duggar. And number 10, Kyle Hamilton.
Nice. So the DBs I like this week, touching on some of the names in your list as well there, Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. Both, I think they're both facing a rookie QB. I expect the opposite. Expect the Texans. I think they're playing the Texans. Is that right? Kind of expect the Texans to be playing from behind. So yeah, I really like those 2 guys. I'm going to double check they are playing the Texans here because I'm going to look silly if they're not. Yeah, they are. So yeah, really like both of them. Kind of for different reasons. Expecting Hamilton to be that box guy. So yeah. really like those two this week. I mean, DB's hard, right? There's even more volatility here at the position than there is any other. So expecting to be quite wrong on some of these calls, but that's just the way things go. Cam Curl, yeah, I really like Cam Curl season long and this week playing against the Cardinals, I believe. So yeah, I really like the way that he could perform against a player like, Clayton Tune. We heard a bit about, but I think Dobbs is starting at QB based on what I saw yesterday. Correct me if you think I'm wrong, but yeah, I think Curl could deliver a big week. We're hoping for some splash plays from the guys I've mentioned here: the Kyle Hamilton, the Marcus Williams, the Cam Curl, going back up against these untested QBs. Yeah, that's where I sit with those guys. What have you got at defensive back and why, Mase?
Yeah, just want to give Kyle Hamilton a shout there. He's one of those guys you were talking about with the defensive lineman there at the end, second-year players you're looking for to kind of break out. They put Kyle Hamilton in a great position, put him pretty much everywhere in the defensive back area. So maybe that's kind of so he can, push and pull players later, know what's going on, kind of be in the mix. Yeah. So for him to be in the box and, like I said, just be in the mix, that's a great call. I got Kamren Curl versus Arizona just because the whole linebacker situation is pretty murky. They spent the first-round pick on Jammie Davis. I'm not really sure what kind of legal issues he has going on. So now Cody Barton has the green dot. They have Derek Forrest over the top who can kind of bang in the box as well and kind of do both, along with a plethora of cornerbacks. And they did just draft one as well. His name is escaping me, but I feel like Kamren Curl is going to be called on to do a lot more tackling and, like you said, the splash plays. So looking forward to that. Isaiah Simmons versus Dallas. I really just want to see where he's going to be played. And if he is going to be played as a linebacker, then he's going to be killer for defensive back, right? So just kind of, stand out and see where he's going to go. He could also play box safety, just as long as they don't put him at deep safety. But I know they have McKinney, and he has the green dot, I believe. So he's going to be calling plays and maybe having that bird's eye view and just kind of, playing puppet master there. Harrison Smith versus Tampa Bay. That guy is just like slept on and forgotten for some reason. Like no one wants to take the easy points. With defensive backs, it doesn't get much easier than Harrison Smith from a year-to-year basis if he is healthy. Week one, though, you got to go with him, man. So I kind of thought Lewis Cine was going to come and slide in there a year and a half ago. He had the injury and whatnot. Now he's kind of slotted to be the free safety. They got Cameron Bynum, I believe, over the top. So why not have Harrison Smith go out this last year or two with the Vikings kind of in a light and just push him to do everything. I also have, so this is outside my top 40 guys. I got two guys here. Well, no, okay, this guy isn't outside my top 40. I don't know why I put on here. But anyways, Jordan Fuller for the Rams. I feel like he could get over 100 tackles if he stays healthy, man. They didn't really have anyone else there, right? They got Ernest Jones, Darnold, and then they drafted Young, the outside linebacker / edge guy, I guess. Mm-hmm. But, they're going to bring Fuller in the box, and I feel like with Roseboom as their LB2, they're not going to be afraid to put a guy in there that's not afraid to bang, but can also has enough athleticism to stay with some of these athletic guys that go in the slot that go up against them, especially in the division, right? Last guy I will talk about is another, I guess he's former NFC West guy, Jimmy Ward. He's going to be playing kind of that inside the box role, I feel like, for D'Amico Ryan's defense. He's a leader in the locker room, and he knows that defense. He's very comfortable with it. So I feel like he'll be able to send him and use him in ways. He played a plethora of positions when he was over at the Niners. So if you got to throw a dart, I think you should throw it towards Jimmy Ward.
Nice. It's always nice to hear Harrison Smith get a mention. I agree with you. He's one of those underrated guys. I've got him as my DB 16 this week, and I like his matchup. You mentioned Chin earlier on. He's one of the guys just to move on to the guys we're kind of concerned about this week. So Chin's one of those guys for me. I'm kind of a bit concerned about his utilization in the preseason. We kind of saw him rotate in and out with the starters while Xavier Woods and Von Bell remained in. It was a bit of a surprise, and he was kind of expected and still is expected by most to be a key part in that Panthers defense in 2023. I've still got him ranked as my DB 22 this week, but slightly concerned about how that situation plays out. I am, there's every chance that he's going to be an every down guy or close to it once sort of meaningful games get underway as the slot DB. But yeah, if you're spoiled for choice at safety, or if you're in a shallow league that only starts sort of one or two guys at the position, I think it's advisable to consider what other options you have for week one. So yeah, he's my main area of concern at defensive back, and also a point to watch coming into the week. So is there any guys that you don't like this week, Mase, at DB?
Yeah, pretty much anyone in the Bengals secondary. I'm not really sure what they're doing, how the rotation is going to be. So I'm just going to kind of avoid. I like Daxton Hill, but I know he played more of he was more successful when he was at Michigan, I believe, in the slot corner role. So I'm not really sure if he's going to be pulling back and they're going to be switching, I believe, with Nick Scott. What's going on there? So don't really like him, at least for week one. I do like Brian Branch, but I would like to see his role in the defense. I know he's been kicking ASS, man, and taking names, and everyone loves him in the press and all this stuff, and that's great, but I really want to see what his role is. They did bring in Gardner Johnson as well. So, yeah, I'm not really sure. I'm in on him, but at the same time, I'm not really sure for this week.
Yeah, I'm same as you with Branch. I love him as a player. Really versatile, really heady guy. So it'd be interesting to see how that plays out. I heard that he was going to be probably occupying the slot role with Gardner Johnson moving to safety, and then Tracy Walker losing out or not being a starter anymore. But that wasn't how I expected it to play out. So let's see how that unfolds. That's definitely a situation to watch this week. Other situations I'm kind of interested in seeing how they unfold. Yeah, that Panthers situation, like I mentioned earlier on, with Chin, Von Bell, Xavier Woods, and the Bengals one, like you mentioned, Dax Hill, Nick Scott, Jordan Battle. I'm expecting it to be Hill and Scott there, at least to start. But yeah, Battle's a guy they kind of invested a little bit of draft capital in. So interested to see how that one unfolds as the season goes on. So, yeah, any other situations you're interested in keeping an eye on at safety this week, Mase?
Maybe not safety, but I want to look towards some of these more hybrid guys that'll play more slot corner. Maybe a guy like Nate Hobbs who could play outside and still get tackles, see what consistency is going on, see what Snead's role is going to be in the Chiefs' defense, and if he's going to be a liable option, because regardless of what's going on between him and McDuffie, he's still getting drafted higher than McDuffie, I believe. Even though McDuffie's in the role that Snead previously had. So it could get messy there if you're taking either guy at cost of face value. I'm really just looking for those guys that I guess intra-division that are going to be targeted a lot. Like maybe, all right, if you have a Sauce Gardner, you're looking for your Reed. You know what I mean? The guy that's going to get plugged more because you have another guy on the other side of the field, and actually see if that is going to be tried and true and who's going to be testing what players.
Nice. I'm also looking forward to seeing which guys emerge from nowhere or seemingly nowhere. The sort of the Jason Pinnock at the Giants and Tony Adams at the Jets. These guys are not being talked about very much at the moment, but I feel like they're going to become names that we all know about in the IDP circles by the end of the year or well before the end of the year. So yeah, that's some of the guys I'm really keen on looking at. So yeah, that about does it, Mase. That brings us to the end. A huge thanks for hanging out to talk IDP with me today. You were an awesome guest. Bring a lot of knowledge to the table. It's been a lot of fun having you with your insight. Please remind our listeners where they can find your work this year.
Yeah, you can see me on Twitter at CaliKing49er17. I rank on the Fantasy Pros ECR. My rankings can be found at Fantasy Six Pack, where I'm the IDP content manager. I do a show for the sports affiliation every Thursday, Twitter Spaces, with Hall of Fame writer for the sports writing affiliation, Greg Kellogg. We have guests come on there every Thursday, talk to them, really audience oriented. So come through. That's at 4 p.m. Pacific time. Sorry, dude, I do so much now. It's hard to remember. It started as a hobby and now it's just everything. So all I gotta say is, man, it's been a real honor to be on the after show, to even be part of the IDP show. It's something that I listen to hopefully on the daily between you guys and Macri on what's going on. It's my first listen every day. I appreciate all that you guys do, and much love and respect to you, Jay. Seriously, thank you so much for inviting me on.
It's been my pleasure. Thanks again for coming on. Hope to hook up with you again before the season finishes. So, to our listeners, look, thanks for tuning in. If you have any questions, you can find me on Twitter at Jase Abbey. Don't forget, we also have the Start Sit thread on the site where Evan Ronda and Jake Colhagen will be answering questions live on the preview episode. Be sure to subscribe to the IDP show at theidpshow.com to view the rankings I've talked about today and much, much more. Bye for now.
This was the IDP After Show.